Okay, cool. It's 9 on the dot. So today we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're in week 6 today. So we've done photo P for the first 5 lessons, okay, which is kind of great traditional image editing. It's not the best for composition though, especially when you're composing stuff for prints, because you work with very high resolutions. So if you don't have a very fast computer, it's going to struggle a little bit. And it's a little bit clunky, okay? I prefer to use Canva for composition, and then when I actually need to edit parts of an image or deep etch something, then I use Photoshop or Photo P, okay? So I kind of work with them together. All right, but you can get pretty far just using Canva. So we're going to look at Canva for the next 2 weeks. This is the second last DP lesson we're going to have. We'll have today, and I'm going to hand out the brief today as well, and then next week we'll probably just do a little bit of practice in class, and maybe I'll help you with any questions you have in the brief, and then the last week we don't have any class, okay, because you'll be handing in on the 30th, the last day, with your PAD too, but I'll get back to that. Okay, so we're going to have a look at Canva for the next, well, today and probably next week a little bit as well. It's really simple. There aren't any notes like there were with Photo P, because it's such a simple program, okay? You'll learn it just by working with it for like half an hour. That's all it takes to learn the basics, because there's not much to it. Okay, but I wanted to give you a little bit of grounding in just layout and composition, because the first time we kicked off lessons with Photo P, we did a little thing called Intro to Digital Media, where I showed you about the different types of image types, okay, raster, vector, file sizes, image compression, color, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we've left that all behind now. We're going to just have a look at some basic principles of composition and layout. In other words, how to present something, how to organize information visually to make it appealing, to make it readable, to make it logical, to make it impactful and eye-catching and all of that good stuff. Okay, so a lot of these principles you will be familiar with already, because you've probably learned them in maybe sketching or in first year, okay? All of your subjects kind of reinforce them the whole way as you go, okay? So here are basically the contents of what we'll go through today. It's quite short. Okay, so these are the basic, and these are elements. Let's have a look. Elements, and these apply to a lot of visual communication in general, okay, so art as well as visual and graphic design. And the fundamentals are, well, there are quite a few, but I think the most agreed upon ones are the ones down the side there, okay, color, line, shape and form, pattern and texture. And if you look there on the right hand side, there's a little pictorial example of what that stuff means, okay? And there's a couple of extra ones there. Line, a mark made by a painting tool such as brush, pen or stick, or moving point. So if you think about your sketches, they're all composed of lines, okay? That's how we read form into whatever you've composed with those lines. Shape, okay, flat enclosed area, there's 2 dimensions, length and width. Can be both geometric and organic. Color, okay, that's an important one. Value, so this is something I'm teaching to the first years in sketching right now, okay? Shades from light to dark, where you have something that's completely white, something that's completely dark, completely black, and everything in between. And a nice smooth gradient. Form, okay, objects that are 3-dimensional, obviously being interior designs, we're going to deal with that a lot. Width and height, they can be viewed from many sides. Forms take up space and volume. Right, obviously we're designing 2D presentations, they don't actually take up space, but they take up visual space. And then texture describes the feel of an actual surface. The surface quality of an object can be real or implied, and this is going to be important when it comes to your brief, because you're going to be rendering textures into your sketches or your floor plan or whichever it is that you choose. And then space, okay. Used to create the illusion of depth. Space can be 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, negative or positive, okay. Negative space is actually quite an important one to maintain in your presentations. Okay, it gives stuff a little bit of breathing room, and it can add, add hierarchy to elements like that. Okay, so those are the basic elements that we play with, and that's pretty universal. So we'll go into a couple of these a little bit more in depth here. Color. Okay, so when we talk about color, we talk about hue, saturation, and brightness. Remember, those are HSL, or lightness sometimes. HSL is actually one of the adjustments you can make in Photo P. So when I asked you to change that sample of leather from that brown color, that oxblood color, to the teal color, we changed the hue of it, okay? In other words, we rotated where it was on the color spectrum. And you guys should be familiar from first year already with these color scheme here, okay? Monochromatic is one color. Analogous is one, and maybe a couple or pair on each side, okay? Complementary is opposite each other on the wheel, okay? Split complementary is almost opposite, but to the left and right. And then triad, rectangle, and square, okay? So these are things you should be using just generally in your designs and in your thinking. And I want you to give them a thought when you apply them to your visual presentations as well. Okay, and here's another good example, contrast. Okay, this is something that pops up now and again. Can you see me? Can you can read that pretty easily, okay? Because it's yellow text on a black background. So that's good contrast. And if you look over here, bad contrast, I've got yellow text on like an orange background. Very difficult to read that, all right. And then there's emotional color groups as well. So if you're designing a curry restaurant, all right, this is quite the stereotypical example here. But warm colors, okay? Warm colors make us feel good and warm and happy inside, okay? Cool colors can make us feel kind of calm and relaxed. And then there's neutral colors, which are black, white, shades of brown and grey, okay? Things that are found in nature. Actually, you can find all of these in nature. But a lot of the materials we use, and a good foundation for a color scheme is to put some naturals in there. Okay, but it all depends on what your concept is really. And I encourage you to use a color scheme as well, a palette. If you can't come up with a palette from scratch, you can always Google color palettes, and you'll just get tons and tons of these ones like this. And then when you find one that stands out at you, just by all means go ahead and use these colors in your design. Okay, so cohesive palette or scheme, yeah. And then background, that's another big one, okay. You may have been used to just putting things onto black or white card or something like that. But now that we're moving things more digital, you have the choice of adding more colors and shapes and elements into your background, and then the background itself becomes an element, okay. And sometimes you can really make something pop, as you know, perhaps mounting it on black cardboard, okay, because there's a big contrast between your white drawing on that black cardboard. But you could invert that principle as well. You could have a dark drawing on a light background, or you could have a completely colored background, okay. But the background element does become important. Line, okay, an element of art defined by a point moving in space. Inga?
I just wanted to check that's the scale.
Which one? Yeah?
The scale is the yellow, blue, and red.
That's
That is the style.
this. Yeah, it's the style. Artist is Piet Mondrian. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so vertical, horizontal, diagonal, curve, these are all types of lines. Width and weight, okay, the thickness of the line, in other words. Texture, okay, because the line, texture usually comes traditionally, at least when you're putting a line across paper, paper's in texture, and so that ink or whatever the material is that you're drawing the line with picks up some of that texture, okay. So you can have texture inside your line. You can have texture in anything actually, and it can be continuous, implied, or broken. Okay, so a line can end in space and can continue on, but because our brains are designed to recognize patterns in our environments, we might perceptually perceive that as a single unbroken line, or fill in the blanks for ourselves. Okay, shape and form. Okay, any dimensional area that stands out from the space next to or around it. Okay, so that's how we distinguish shapes from other shapes. They have some sort of boundary. Maybe it's defined, maybe it's implied, okay, because of a difference in color or texture or something like that. But that's how we tell different forms apart from one another. The shapes are recognizable objects and forms, okay, we have names for them: circle, triangle, square, that kind of stuff. Geometric or mechanical shapes produce a feeling of control and order, which is great because in interior design it's almost half technical, half creative, okay. So you're almost always going to have some mechanical or geometric shapes, which is okay. And organic shapes are regular shapes that are often complex and resemble shapes that are found in nature, and they're more sort of soft and warm and inviting. Okay, so it's good to have a good balance of these things. But again, it also depends on what concept you're going for at the end of the day, or individual design. You can see some examples here, okay, of actual interiors. This is very structural and geometric and hard and angular and ordered, and this is very curvaceous and soft, and same goes with these kind of shapes here. And these colors help as well soften this whole composition versus something that's very sharp and angular like this. Okay, texture and pattern. Okay, these are the physical and visual qualities of the surface. Attract or repel interest to an element. Okay, something that has texture and pattern maybe catches your eye. They add detail, and of course it's very important when we're trying to communicate samples or finishes or something like that, because we're designing environments that people touch, feel and see and walk around in. So texture is very important. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail. I just want to get these main headings into your heads. Okay, so now that we know some of the basic elements of design and composition and layout, okay, well, let's have a look more closely at layout. So I've kind of split this into three sections here. Okay, first of all is thinking about who is your audience, who are you going to be presenting to. Okay. And this is something you can use in the rest of your lives right now. Every time you create any kind of document or any presentation or anything, think about who's going to be viewing it. Okay. Think about the size and orientation. Okay, because we live in a physical world, and even if something we create digitally is made of ones and zeros, at some point it has to be viewed by somebody, and it's either going to be through a screen or it's going to be printed out or something like that. Okay, so you have to think about those particular formats as well. And you can think about the arrangement as well. So you can see there's a couple of examples of how somebody's laid out a concept for this public space over here, and how they've given little thumbnail images and different little bits of information over here. Very little text actually, mostly visual here. Some very nice pictures at the bottom and some other exploded views of how the different layers interact with one another. Okay, so we'll look at this in more detail. So let's have a look at audience and medium. Okay, the first of those points over there. All right, so who is the intended audience of your work? Okay, are you showing it to a client? In other words, you want to make sure it looks really, really good. You want to wow them with a concept, get them to buy in. Okay, you're selling your idea. But if you're doing a presentation with a contractor, maybe it's a little bit different. Okay, then maybe it's more focused on the technical information because this guy needs to do his job right. You don't need to sell the idea to him if the client's already bought into it. Okay, you just have to get him to do what you want to do. Maybe they're a potential customer, okay, target market, maybe the presentation is just for yourself. Maybe you're selling yourself, maybe it's a presentation of your CV or your portfolio of work, okay. Are you pitching a concept or just laying out information, okay? One of them might be quite boring technical application, one of them, if you're pitching a concept, then you really want to put your heart and soul into it, okay, because you want them to say yes, and then pay you lots of money to do it, okay. And are you advertising something like yourself maybe, okay, so that can be quite personal, so you need to think carefully about what it is you want to say about yourself and your ideas to potential employers or clients, whatever the case may be. And then when you figure that out, think about how's your audience best reached, okay? How many people are you presenting to? If you're presenting to one person, great, you can send them, you can show them a presentation, or you can print them out and you can sit with them and they can go through it, okay? That's assuming that you're even face to face. If presenting to a group of people, then logistically it's a bit more difficult, okay? That's why we're all gathered today in this room today, and I'm showing you things in the projector, because for me to gather you all around a table and present something physical to you, it's just not practical, okay? So that's where technology comes in to help us out. But then I'm designing something for the screen now, I'm not designing something for print anymore, okay? So there's an important difference there. Are you even going to be seeing them face to face? You're going to have the luxury of being able to talk and speak to each other directly, or is it going to be remotely? If it's remote, then automatically you know that it's going to be viewed through a screen. And then you have to think about, well, if you're trying to pitch an idea, you've got to make this as grabbing as possible through the screen, okay? So it doesn't matter how neatly you mount your work and how three-dimensional it looks when it's hanging on the wall. If you're going to email this presentation to someone, that's all going to be lost, okay? So think about that before you start. Is it an email message? Are you going to be able to at least talk through your concept? Which I think is fair. If you've put a lot of work into it, then you should try and arrange a time when you can present your concept personally, rather than just popping something in an email and be like, hey, check it out at your own leisure, okay, and then 4 days later they get back to you. You want to create a kind of a sense of occasion, make it a bit of an event, okay, because you put a lot of hard work into it. Or maybe they want to have physical samples delivered, or you're going to print something out, put it in a tube and courier it to them, and they're going to open it on the other side, okay. That's up to you. Sometimes very good marketing strategies center around having something tactile and tangible and physical delivered to the person so they can interact with it. And it creates a better bond with your audience. Okay, and how would you like to best communicate your work? So think about the holistic audience, the end user experience. Is your work static or multimedia? Is it just a bunch of pictures, or is there some animation? Is there some sound and video? Okay, is it interactive? Can you touch it? Did you send a little model with it? Did you give them a VR demonstration? Did you invite them around here to do it? Do they have VR equipment? Who knows? Okay, try and engage their senses, and then do justice to your hard work and show it off, okay? So if you spent many late hours and weekends putting hard graft into your presentation, you don't really want to just email it and then be like, leave it at that, okay? You want to try and give it the sense of occasion that it deserves. All right, so here's an example of somebody presenting something to a bunch of other people on a screen, okay, versus this guy that's just having a video conference with a bunch of people. Or maybe you're designing something that has no particular audience in general, okay, maybe you're doing a presentation or a layout or a piece of advertising like this billboard here that lives outside your structure while it's going up, and it's not intended for anyone in particular, but anytime anybody walks by, they'll understand this is the concept that you have, and here's your logo. They should work with Mila Incorporated or whatever, because you've got the most kick-ass biggest billboard out there, okay? This is still a form of presentation, So that's something you should think about. Or maybe you want to create a little model and actually show it off that way, because then they can hold it up the window and they can see that the way the light falls through it, and they can look at it from all different angles. Okay, yay. And the next thing to consider is when you figure out what your audience and your medium is. In other words, is it going to be a physical, is it going to be a digital medium, who you're pitching to, okay? Then it's to figure out your size and orientation, okay? So if you're going for screen or digital, you need to think about what device that they're going to be viewing it on. You're going to be sending it to multiple people, and some of them might be meetings, or they work out of their car, I don't know. Are they going to look at it on their tablet, on their phone? Are they going to be looking at it on a laptop? You're going to have the benefit of presenting it to them in their boardroom on their big screen, okay? So you need to think about the resolution of that device and maybe the bandwidth, okay? You don't want to be emailing 100 megabyte, 4-page A1 PDF to everyone. Maybe you need to make a little bit of a smaller version for email or something like that. Are there multiple slides to it? Is there one layout? Is there multiple? Okay. Are there transition or the animation between the slides, or do they just switch from one to another? Is it quite flat? Do you have videos and other stuff like that embedded in there? Is it part of the presentation, or is it linked to YouTube? Maybe this person has limited data and are you sucking up all the data because they're having to watch your 400 gig presentation, something like that? Don't know. Okay, it's up to you. And if you don't go digital route, then print. Okay, print's the other option, and then think about what are you going to print it on? Is it going to be paper, card, matte, gloss? You know, these finishes are going to affect the way it looks when it's viewed hanging on the wall, or on the table, or whatever. You're going to use landscape or portrait orientation. You're going to have one layout or multiple. You're going to squeeze everything together on one A2 page, or one A1 page, or you're going to have two A2s, or you're going to have four A3s. Or you're just going to leave some information out and only have one A2. Okay, it's all up to you and how complex your design is and what the requirements of the brief are. Okay, printing or cutting margins, cutting or registration marks. So, how many of you know what registration marks are on print? Okay, so some printers, it depends where you print. Most office desktop printers won't print right to the edge of the paper. Some of them do. When you buy them, they advertise things like, "Oh, we've got borderless printing." Like, yay. Okay, and that is usually true, but that doesn't always apply to an A4 page. Sometimes you only get borderless printing on the sizes slightly smaller than A4, okay, which is kind of a bit of a con. But if you take it to a professional printer shop, I'm sure they can print it like right edge to edge, okay. You get something called A4S or something, which is A4 but slightly larger, and if you specify that paper, what they can do is print right to the very edges of a normal A4, and then they trim off the extra piece of the paper so that you can have text and images that go right to the very, very edge of your page. And those cutting registration marks are something you can place in your image editing software, or usually DTP software, okay, desktop publishing like in Illustrator or InDesign, something like that. There are little marks on the corner of the page that shows the person where to cut it. So if it is going to be trimmed to a particular size, maybe square or something like that, then these are little marks that they line up on their guillotine or whatever when they cut the page, so they cut it in the right space. Yeah.
So like the same thing that they do with newspapers and like your office where they have the full colour box.
Yes.
And then that means that has to be exact to that.
That is also part of it, yeah. So it's printed on the little border part of the page that will eventually be cut off. Sometimes it's visible. Often catalogs you can find at the bottom of the page there are those little marks, or at the back. If you turn over your Weet-Bix box or something like that, you'll see different color blocks and little registration marks. That's because that particular prints, that mass printing process, they print the colors separately, okay? And so that page needs to make sure that it sits in exactly the right position, so that when it goes under each one of the individual colors, they're not offset, okay? It's called misregistration. Sometimes newspapers suffer from this, where you can see like one color is shifted slightly, like the paper got a little bit twisted or tilted when it went under that particular roller, and so the picture doesn't come out all that crisp or clear, okay? So those little marks are things that you'll see out and about on mass-produced print media and things like that, to make sure that all their printing is lining up and that everything is cut in the right place, okay? And then if you're going to have something that's bound, think about you're going to flip it over on the corner, on the long side, on the short side. You're going to clamp it together, you're going to bind it, you're going to put it in a file, a piece of plastic, you're going to punch it. Is it going to be spiral bound? Is it going to have a wire bound? These are all different ways of presenting physical, or printed media. Okay. And then when you display it, think about if you're going to hang it on a wall, if you're going to put it on like some kind of art board or an easel, or if it's going to be displayed on a flat surface. And if you do display it on the walls at opposite a window, is somebody going to be squinting when they're looking at it? Is it in shadow? Okay, you want to do justice to your work. So these are things to consider. And there's also a brochure format. Okay, so I'm trying to go broad here. I'm not assuming that every presentation you do will be a layout of a concept on the A1 or A2 board. you'll present many different types of information in your life, okay? And it's a good chance that you end up working for a company or something like that and they'll ask you to do something that's not particularly part of your job description, like do a little brochure or do a little handout or a newsletter or something like that. So working through these principles will help you kind of narrow it down the direction you want to go. Here you go, small, medium, large, for example, screens, okay? Small devices, little watch, tablet, screen, medium, tablet, computer screen, and then medium sort of tablet, and then large, like big screen TVs, that kind of stuff, okay? And then arrangement, these are all various arrangements you can use, okay? So think about the grids, margin, the spacing of elements, the overlap and transparency of elements. Find the tone of your composition with unity, harmony, balance, hierarchy, dominance, emphasis, scale, proportion, similarity, contrast, okay? These are all a lot of big names, but over here is a little pictorial explanation of some of them, okay? Principles of grouping, like proximity. By putting things close to one another, people naturally associate these kind of things. So maybe all your pictures on the first floor over there, and your pictures on the second floor over there, and this is your logo or something like that. But you can see the negative space here helps group these items together, okay? Even though we don't see any information other than a black block, because of the way that they've been laid out on this page, we can infer relationships in here. We can understand that these things belong together, and these things belong together, and this thing is by itself, okay? Or something like this. And remember, here in Western culture, we read from left to right as well. Asian cultures read from top to bottom sometimes. Middle East, if it's in Arabic or one of those languages, they read from right to left, okay? So, and there's actually quite a few architects firms that do a lot of work in Dubai and places like that as well. And I've seen bits of media floating around the office where the text is written in the other direction, okay, but it's also not English. It's not the Roman alphabet either. It's also, I have no idea what the text said. But have a here, similarity. Here's another example. Okay, these are all dark circles and these are all light circles. So we naturally assume that these go together and these ones go together and these ones go together because these are similar to each other. Okay, continuity, and you can see we see an X there. That's just our brain's reading pattern. Closure. Okay, this is one of those kind of visual tests. You can see here that there is no square there. It is actually just these kind of Pac-Man looking objects, but our mind sees this square because of the negative spacing, because you want to naturally fill in patterns here. We're going to imagine that there's a line crossing there. So we see a square even though there isn't an explicit square there. Okay, area, symmetry, hierarchy and color contrast. You can make something standing out by making it bigger or bolder or thicker. Or maybe it's got more detail, or maybe it's just more high contrast than the other objects around it. This one is different because of its shape. Okay, golden ratio. That's another thing you can apply. And in fact, A4, you can see these pages are actually roughly a golden ratio. That's why they're on that page, and they all fit neatly into one another. If you turn this whole diagram sideways, you'd end up with something that roughly approximates this golden ratio over there. All right, weight, hierarchy, and scale. So you can see that this is the most important element on the page because it's the biggest, and this is the second most important. This is perhaps the least important. So these are all different ways that you can emphasize or de-emphasize information. Okay, if you put all your work into one amazing perspective view, then make that one biggest, or make it the most colorful, or put it center in the page, and then put the lesser elements, the ones that you didn't spend so much work on, smaller. Okay, some of these principles it just comes naturally. Okay, but this might help you figure out a few more novel and creative ways to lay out things. Also have a flow, continuity, and story. Okay, if you were presenting this to someone, where would you start? As you walk into the restaurant, the bathroom's at the back, and then there's no, don't start there. You probably want to start with as you walk into the restaurant, you're greeted by this amazing chandelier or something like that. So maybe it helps to run through how you would present in your head, and maybe that would, the story you would tell would also help you inform your layout. Okay, so maybe the thing that you talk about first is the thing that's at the top of the page, or in a part of the page, or at a particular size or contrast or something that somebody would notice at first. Okay, so that's all I'm going to talk about for layouts and composition. We're going to have a look at Canva now, and then you can come back to this presentation, which I have put on the LMS as well. That there's a little workflow here made by this lady called thisdesigngirl.com. Okay, and she did this great little flow chart about just like a little checklist about if you're doing stuff for print or if you're doing stuff for screen. Okay, so when you've decided that out, then you should, like if you're printing, you should work in CMYK color, okay? And if you're doing screen work, then you should work in RGB color. And there's our resolution, 300 dots per inch if you're going for print, 72 dots per inch if you're going for screen, okay? And then that continues down on the side. These are the type of common file formats that you deal with for print, and these ones are kind of for screen, okay? There's some overlap there. File size, mediums, file types, resolution, color, okay? So that's a nice little flowchart you can help you. Okay, so let's have a look at Canva. That's all the theory for today. So for those of you that haven't used, who hasn't used Canva here yet? You all have. Okay, so when you go to canva.com, and that's how to get to Canva, it already remembers me because I've logged in previously. So I want you to also open it, and it all looks like you have existing logins already. NG, okay, cool. All right, you guys all have logins already. Wonderful. So at this point, you can go down here. And you can choose a template for yourself, okay, when you have an idea of what it is that you're going to do. Or you can just create a custom template. All right, you can go up here to do create design. When you go to canva.com, you're going to be confronted with the screen, okay? Or this is all run through the cloud. Everything that you do in Canva is not stored on your computer. It's stored in Canva, okay? The free there's a difference between the free version and the premium version. You can tell the difference most easily when you're actually working in the design interface, because you'll see a little crown icon next to a bunch of elements that you have to pay for versus the free ones that you can just use right away. Okay, so all your past designs will be over here on your dashboard. Then your templates will be up here across the top. Instagram post, story. So if you're doing social media stuff, they've already got nice templates laid out for you there, and you can create something custom for yourself over there. Okay, presentations, social media, you can see if you just click between these, there's a huge amount of templates that you can go through, and there's some really, really good templates. In fact, Canva, of all the programs that I've seen, has employ the best designers to throw together these templates. I think they look the freshest and the most contemporary. Instagram posts, logos, look at that. Even if you're struggling with logos, you could do something like just grab one of these and change the text in there. Okay, so very, very useful. There's a lot of design tools built in here. Facebook posts, A4 documents, awesome. Okay. And you can, if you want to just have a look at all your designs and not be presented with all this stuff, you can just click on all your designs here and it'll show you all the past ones. You can see all the stuff I've actually done for BHC social media there. Okay, but let's go ahead and create a custom design. So we'll just go up to this corner button up here that says create design, okay, top right corner. And let's go, what are we going to do? A poster probably, hey. So 42 by 59.4, that is actually A3 size right there. Okay, and if you don't like any of these sizes, you can go and create a custom size for yourself down here. But I'm just going to choose poster right now. I'm happy with that. What's it going to give me? Landscape or portrait, I wonder. And you'll see when I clicked on that, it opened a new window here and it left my other window there in the background. Okay, so it's given to me portrait. So I can change this. If I just go to, where is it? Shit. I don't think I've ever done this before. How do you flip it around?
Oh, you can't actually, you need to go back.
I need to create a new one, hey?
Yeah,
shit.
To,
okay, because you could probably do it with resize here, but you can see that little crown icon next to it, that means it's premium, okay? That means you have to pay for that feature. But most of the free, you can get pretty far with the free stuff, okay? All right, I'm going to go to create new design instead, because this wasn't exactly, let me try this quickly. No, yeah. Create new design, custom size. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to type this in myself, right? And I'm going to give it to myself in millimeters, because I'm going to assume it's for print. And then...
swipe it around, so for example, I think that one would have been a landscape one you did just recent, but
420 by 297. That is, oh, that's A3. Okay, so let's do an A3 layout. That's fine. So the bigger number will be my width. So it'll be 420 by 297. Okay, create new design. I'm gonna close that one. There we go. That's better. Okay. And you can rename this file as well. I can go up here and I can type in a new name for it. Okay. or you can go to File and you can just click this little pencil icon and you can start typing in there something new as well. Okay, and you can also show your rulers, your guides, your margins over there. These are quite useful, especially if you're doing multiple layouts and you want to have text and images in the same position across them. Then you can put in a couple of guides or rulers for yourself. Okay. So it's quite user friendly. This interface is not very difficult to learn. It's not like it's not like Photopea or Photoshop like the other stuff we've been doing up until now. Okay, and most of you already have accounts, so I assume you've already have some experience with Canva as well. So this will probably be quite a short lesson. Okay, so all design changes are saved automatically. Okay, there is no save button. You can see it says all changes saved up there, and every time you do something, it might take 1 or 2 seconds, and then it will continue saving those changes for you in the background as you go along. Okay, but it does mean that you need to be connected to the internet the whole time that you're using Canva, because it doesn't save. It's not like Photopea where you can load the program and then disconnect, and when you click save, it saves it to your hard drive. Everything is stored in the cloud on Canva. Okay, underneath your login. And for those of you who might watch this video but aren't in this class right now, you might need to create a login with your personal email address the first time you use Canva. Otherwise, it should already be there, or you just need to log in. Okay, so okay, we've successfully created a custom size here using millimeters as the unit of measurement. Okay, and I set it up so that it's A3 portrait, and I can go ahead and just add some text and images in here, and we can do that by finding them on this left-hand side over here. You guys already know that, I'm sure, though. Okay, and then if you ever want to search for anything, you can also search within each of these element fields by going up here and then searching. Okay, text, all this kind of stuff, and you can see that there's already text that's actually been composed into these kind of sticker formats, which is great, and everything like that. And then you can also have a look at templates here. Okay, so these templates kind of adjust to the size that you've set up. And if you just really stuck for some kind of creative direction, it's great to just scroll through these and find something that jumps out at you, something that fits the look and feel of the design, and then you can go and mess around with these kind of things. Like, let's do this one. Congrats, Richard. Okay, so I clicked on that and it automatically dumped these elements into my custom sized A3 landscape thing over here, and you see that as I mouse over them, it shows this little cyan border around it. Okay, and that's how I know that if I were to click at that point, the thing would be selected. Okay, and it's like many other programs. If you hold down Shift and click on other items, you can select. Hello. There, you can hold down Shift and you can click on multiple items to select them together. Okay. Yeah, so now that we've got this template loaded in here, by just clicking on it, we can go and take apart all these elements. Okay, so I can actually replace Richard with somebody else. I can decide to change the color of these objects. Okay, and you can see that if I click on something and I see a little dotted line around it, okay, there's a good chance that these objects are grouped. And so I can see by clicking on here, I see a little dotted line there, and if I right click and it says ungroup, then that just confirms to me that these objects were actually grouped. Okay, so I can change the color individually from here. If I want to change this blue to something else, I just select it and this little icon pops up here, blue color, and then I can go. It actually pulls other document colors that are found in there already and puts them up there for you. But if you want something completely different, you can choose from over here. Okay, you can add another palette as well, but you're going to have to pay for that feature. But this is fine. These are most of the colors I just picked from here, or from the ones that it automatically populates into document colors. And if you want the whole full spectrum, then you can go over here and find something like this. Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and right click on this thing, go ungroup. There we go. So now I've got these individual elements and I can move them around separately. Right. But the idea is that they obviously put this so that it looks like, it's inverted, like this part is orange and this part blue. You can see what's going on there. Okay, and then we can edit this text as well. And see I see the dotted line there again, so that tells me the stuff is probably in a group as well, like that's an element, that's probably an element. This is probably a separate element. In fact, I can see because there's a block around it. Okay, so if I want to go ahead and split these things up, you can actually work directly with objects in a group by just selecting that particular object. And if I double click on this piece of text, I can get my little text editor thing inside there. Okay, looks like that little capital I that you're familiar with from all those programs. And I can go ahead and type in something else in here. Okay, like you failed, Richard. And then I can go and select the text. And remember, this is like those other programs as well. If I don't have any text selected, and I go and change it changes the text of the whole block. Oh no, on that line, changes that line. Look at that. Okay, but you can also select parts of the text that you want to work with individually. No? Why is it not?
Right.
Doesn't want to change that text individually. Strange. Does it line by line? What if I just want to change the H? No? Wants to change the whole line. Okay, fine. Okay, but you can see that I changed the size of this text, at least on this line, okay, by just decreasing the size there. And I selected this text down here. You can increase the size over there. Okay, this is part of another text object. It's still inside the group because I can see this dotted line. So I could right click on this whole thing and go ungroup. But it's fine, I'm going to leave it in the group because it means that when I click on one of these elements, I can move them all together as one. Okay. Whereas if I ungroup it and I click on this element, it moves it individually. Okay, so that's the benefit of grouping things together. Yeah, well, there we go. I ungrouped it, so now I can move these elements apart. So you can completely pick apart one of these templates and add in your own stuff. You can change the font, you can change the picture of Richard there, you can change the colors. You can completely modify it to make it your own. Okay, that's the benefit of templates. I'm going to get rid of everything though because I'm done working with this template. I'm going to do something from scratch instead. So I'm just, instead of selecting the elements one by one and then hitting delete, you can also drag a selection box around the whole thing like this. Okay, and you'll see that objects form that little thin rectangle around them as they fall inside this box there. Okay, and then you just let go with your mouse button, and then you can hit delete. Okay, and then I've got this color as my background color. It won't let me delete this object, will it? No, because that's my background. Right, that's a little bit different from Photopea, where your background is actually just a layer. You can make your background whatever you want. It's usually the layer at the bottom of your stack. But over here, there's kind of background snapping that happens in Canva, which can be irritating sometimes. But in order to delete this background, well, I'm not going to delete it. I can just make it white. Okay, so I can select it, go up there to the color, and just click on white. Okay, and I have a white background to work with. And then you can add pages here. Okay, you're not limited to one particular layout like you are with Photopea. You're not working with one page or canvas at a time. You can add multiple pages. Okay, this makes it really flexible. So you can create multi-page presentations or whatever it is here. You just click add page, and it adds another page underneath it. And if you want to change the order of the pages, you can use these little move up or move down things over there, and you can duplicate a particular page as well. So if you want to, if you've done a lot of hard work and layouts and other elements like that, and you want to just swap out a little bit of text and images, you can duplicate it. Okay. So let's go ahead and add something into our first page first. Let me get rid of this page by clicking on the trash can icon. So go ahead and create a composition from these elements on the side here. You can also load in elements that you find yourself. Okay, you can generally just drag and drop them from the desktop. So go ahead and find some elements, find a couple of pictures and some text, and then just create a composition. In fact, let's give ourselves a theme to work with. Okay, let's do breakfast. Okay. Breakfast is our theme this morning, so let's go and find some images of things that you would eat for breakfast. Let's put in some text describing what those images are so we can get to grips with some of these tools. Croissant. Okay, and I'm searching under the photos field right now. Okay, so I just went down here to the side and I typed in croissant over there, and I'm going to hit enter. Let's see what comes up. Okay, so there's some great pictures over here, but I can see a couple of them have this little crown icon that says Pro, which means I can't use that picture unless I pay for the full version of Canva. So I'm going to choose one that doesn't have that little icon. This looks toasty. Okay, so you can just click and drag this picture across onto your canvas. Okay, but if you just click on it and let go, it just dumps it there in the middle. Okay, but if you click and drag, you can position it somewhere yourself. Okay, and you'll see that at a certain point, if I click and drag this thing over onto the background, it snaps and fills into the background. Okay, that's because it's assuming I want to use this thing as a background element. And so you'll see that sometimes it just plucks it right there. Okay, and if I decided, oh, whoopsie, I actually want to use that as a floating picture, not as a background element, okay, and you can't select it and you can't move it around, you need to just, well, you can select it, it's got a thin border around it, and just right click on it and go detach image from background, okay. And then it'll just pop it forward like that, and then you can go and use it more traditionally. The other cool thing about Canva is that you have smart guides as well, so as you move an image around, you'll see that, there we go, I've got this kind of margin around the thing that it wants to clip to, and also as I move it towards the center of the document, vertical and horizontal, these little purple lines appear to let me know that I have the thing lined up exactly in the center. Okay, so croissants, that's good, probably some coffee, definitely some coffee, right? Coffee. And it gives you useful suggestions up here as well, like coffee, beans, tea. Okay, pre-populated suggestions that you can click on, like let's go coffee beans. There we go. Yeah, cool. These ones. So you'll see that the coffee beans that have been deep etched, okay, the background of this menu is dark gray, and I can see the dark gray showing through there. And these are the ones, I mean, this is a pretty basic picture, okay, so no wonder it's free. Oops, went into my background again. Let me select it, detach. Okay, but the ones that have been deep etched, in other words, isolated from the backgrounds and have a nice little shadow underneath them, those are the pro ones. Oh, there's a free one. Ah, yes, wonderful. Okay. I don't know if you noticed that, but if I want to replace another picture with something, I can also take a new picture and drag it onto an existing picture, okay? And it will replace that picture with a new one. So that's quite useful. Remove watermarks. Ah, bastard. It is a pro one. Okay. So we'll get to this later, but when I go and download this document, it's going to have this watermark over here to prevent me from using this unless I pay for it. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that and find a free image. Oh wait, my croissants went away. So you can hit Control Z here, or you can just hit this back button over there to undo changes if you made a mistake. There we go, there's my croissant back again. Delete that. Okay, so yeah, I'm just going to scale these pictures a little bit, and that's very simple. Okay, so you can just click on the picture, select it, and then click and drag it around if you want to move it. And if you want to resize it, you can just click on one of those cool corner elements. Okay, they've got little round grips in the corner. Photopea, they're square, but here they're round. And then you can see there's little rectangular ones, so you can do this to an image as well. You can crop it very quickly by just dragging the edges like that. Okay, and I can crop this image, and then I can resize it. I can crop it in like this. Yeah. It's all good. And then I can rotate it as well by moving my mouse a little bit further away, down there over this little rotate icon. Then I can rotate it, and it gives me a little readout of how many degrees of rotation I'm putting into it, and it snaps around at 90 degrees as well. But it would be weird to have a picture of croissants like at 90 degrees, so I'm going to leave it the way it is. I'm going to put it up here like that, and then I'm going to take these beans and I'm going to crop this image by dragging that edge in there. A little bit smaller. Okay, what else? Sure, let's do a muffin. Yep, and this one. Resize that. And while I'm lining these images up, you can see that as I drag this one up, I get a little purple line across the top of it there to tell me that it is snapping in line with the rest of these images. Okay, I want the bottoms to line up though, because I'm going to crop the top of this background away, so I'm just going to move it up there. And then I see a dotted line that tells me it's in the center of these ones, but I want to go a little bit further. There we go. There's this faint purple dotted line across the bottom there that shows me that it is snapping to the bottom edge of these images there. Then I'm just going to crop it like that. Okay, super. So I got a couple of images in there. I'm happy with that right now. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to add some text in there as well now. Okay, so I'm going to go down here on my left hand side to text. I'm not going to use any of these pre-populated ones, so I'm just going to search text. Here. I want to put in regular text. Oh, there we go. I scrolled past it. Okay, if you want to put in text without using one of these kind of pre-made templates that have effects on them and stuff like that, you can just go over here, heading, subheading, or a bit of body text. Okay, I'm going to add a heading in here, so I'm just going to click add a heading, and it pops in there. I think I can drag and drop this as well. Yeah, you can. You can drag and drop it from that list as well. Either one will work. And then I'm going to line this one up underneath there. I'm just going to make it a bit smaller by resizing it by grabbing the corner handles, just like I did with images. And then I'm going to re-like croissants. That's not how you spell croissants, by the way. And then if I want to change the font, I can just select the piece of text and I can choose from a font down here, okay. And unlike Photopea, where you can upload a font for free, if you want to upload a custom font, perhaps one that's been provided to you by the client or something like that, you're going to have to pay for that feature. Damn it. Okay. But if you can go without that, then there are plenty of nice fonts to choose from here already. Some of them are premium though, they're grayed out and they have a little crown next to them.
But the cost you just $1.
Hey?
The cost you just $1 because I pay. So it's like 15 rand.
Per month?
No. Just like say you want a feature.
So you can buy just that feature?
No, like you can use all like you can put all the features in and then you just pay for all of them $1.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it depends on how many you use, but that's not bad. Okay. So yeah, you can plug in your credit card details or bank card details and then you can have Canva charge you.
It's just 15 rand.
It's not so bad. Okay. Thanks for that info. Alright, that's a nice font over there. Lavello. Where's my O gone? That's weird. Huh. Montserrat. There we go. Okay, and then I can make this a little bit smaller. Go there. I can change the color of the font by going to text color over there. I can be like, I want it brown color. I can make it bold, italic. I can center align it. I can add bullet points if I wanted to. Okay, so you can use this for doing something, well, almost like a slideshow. And I'm going to add another heading over here. That's coffee, okay. It's a rather terrible layout. And I'm going to add a little bit of body text over here, okay. And then I can size this up here. And as soon as I start typing this next thing here, type whatever you want in there. Okay, it's like paragraph text, and then you can resize this thing. Okay, there we go. Move it around. Sometimes with a text box, because you can't click in the center of it to move it around, you have to move your cursor up to the frame, and then you get that little four-way stop thing, and then you can move the text box around like that. Okay, so pretty simple. And then you can go and add some other cool things in as well, like elements, all right, which aren't photos and they aren't text. So these are like little stickers and little graphic icons like that. Shapes, for example. So lines, there's some great ones down here. Design for a cause. Charts, okay, so some chart elements, gradients. Let's put in a gradient. There we go. And then I can choose my colors of the gradient up here as well. Okay, so I can go and change the blend of these things. There we go. All right, most of the time that you end up using one of these tools, it's going to give you a couple of options that pop up there. So if I have something selected, it'll let me change the color. I can crop it, I can flip it, I can choose this thing. And there's some effects I can add to pictures as well. So let's have a look at some of these effects. With the picture selected, you just go up here to effects. Background remover, okay. Oh, that's another premium tool. Duotone. So these are some cool pixelates, bad TV, color mix, apply a quirky color combo. So let's try that one. Okay. There we go. Connect. And is it doing it? Having trouble with some apps, traction connection. Oh, okay. Didn't like that one. Let's try another one. Arctic. Yeah. There we go. Amethyst. Cool. Interesting colors. Let's take this image. Let's make this big. And you can see that because I placed my text last, the text is on top of this image. Okay. If you want to change the arrangement of any objects, you can right-click on it, and you can go bring forward. Okay. Can I move it up one layer? That wasn't enough, so I'm just going to bring it right to the front by right-clicking on it and going bring to front. Okay. Cool. Now it's at the very top, and then I can go and apply another one of these images to it. Let's try the slice effect. That's quite interesting. Okay. Glitch, slice, sliced. There we go. Okay, like chops it up like that. Cool. And then I can do some more stuff with this picture. I can go and filter it. Okay, selfie, solo, so you can apply different filters to it to give it a particular look. Grayscale, if I wanted to. And it should apply this effect on top of the other one as well. Hello. I think it's having a problem because I've got another effect applied to it as well. Maybe I can't apply effect and a filter at the same time. Alright, let me try this coffee image here. I'm going to bring this to the front as well. Bring to front. Let's go filter. Grayscale. There we go. So that worked, grayscale. And you can adjust other things about it as well. Brightness, the contrast. Okay, so that's just clicking on this adjusting over there. The tint, okay, which is a bit like hue, same thing. Saturation. So basically what grayscale did is, but it just moved the saturation slide all the way down there. And you can cross-process it, which is like an old vintage effect. One of the original Instagram filters was basically a cross-process. And then you can crop it over there as well, but that's quite easily done by just dragging those other edge sliders in and around. Okay, I can crop an image by just doing this. But you can also go up here to crop, and then you can do this. You can resize the image and the crop window separately and arrange the thing underneath it like this. Okay, if you so desire, and then you go done. And you can flip it as well, left to right, horizontal or vertical, to get exactly the combination that you want. Alright, position, and then you can also top, middle, you can align it like this. So some very useful layout tools here. And then if you decide that you want to add another page and just change one or two elements like this, but keep most of the layout the same, then rather than doing the whole thing from scratch again, just go up here to duplicate page. Okay, and it'll pop a second page exactly like that underneath it. There's page 1, page 2, okay, and I'm just using my scroll wheel to go between them in this area, or you can drag this bar up and down over there. Right, so it's really, I mean, most of you already have logins, so you already know how to use Canva. Okay, it's quite simple. Let me quickly go through a couple of elements over here, like a shape. Okay, I can drag this circle over there like that. And I can click this little left slide over there to see a couple more shapes. Where did that shape go? Where did I put it?
You can place it onto the page, or it's just left off the page and then.
Did I? Oh, okay, yeah. So if you take an element and drag it completely off the page, it basically disappears. That's it, it's gone. It's not there anymore. Okay, it's like deleting it. So I'm just going to hit back. Let me go back to the circle. Ah, there we go. Okay, it came through purple. And you can see that document colors has been populated here. It automatically picked colors that it found in the document and put them there for me, like a kind of a quick access. But if I don't like any of those colors, look, it's even choosing them from photos. Okay, so if you have a particular photo that's front and center, you can use the color palette that is picked from that particular photo. So everything looks kind of cohesive. Thanks, Canva. And then I'm just going to select a different color for it here. Maybe this green color. Can resize it a little bit. Okay, it's on top of this picture. I want it to be underneath it, so I can just right click on it and go center back, put it right at the bottom over there. And this is an example of terrible contrast here. Okay, so I should really change this image text, the color of this text over there, black. Alright, this is a terrible composition. So, and then here is an animated one. Okay, so of course, if I take an animated element like this sticker, and put it in there, it's going to animate the whole time that it lives in your presentation, which is great. These are very useful for social media and stuff like that that allow animation. But if you're going to export this as a static picture for print, then that image is going to stay like static. It's not going to move, obviously. If you do want to see that movement, then when you go to save the presentation, you need to download it as, it'll give you a recommendation, MP4, because it understands that there's animation in there, something like that. Okay, so yeah, let's quickly go through that. Okay, so when you're done with your presentation and you're happy with the way it looks and you want to download it now, okay, you want to save it, in other words, to email it to someone or get it onto your computer so it doesn't just live in Canva, then you just go to download. Okay. And very often it'll give you a couple of suggested file types. Like maybe you want to just save this as a PNG. Okay, that's your suggested file type. You can change this though. If you really want a PDF, you can go down here to PDF standard. Okay, in other words, it compresses some of the images, which is nice for emailing like that. And it is multi-page because it understands that we have page 1 and page 2 in here. Or you can do print quality PDF, which is, if you are going to print it, then that's what I suggest you use to make sure that there's very low compression or no compression in the images. And everything looks very good and everything looks nice and sharp when you go and print it. I'm just going to go PDF standard, okay. So I click on that, select pages. So you can choose to just export 1 or 2 pages. So maybe you've done a bunch of extra pages that you're not going to use. They're like leftover or they're templates or something like that. You can just deselect those pages. Okay. I'm just going to select all pages and then go done. All right. And then go download. And it'll take a moment. It'll say preparing your design, and then it'll start downloading the PDF. Then you can go and open that and you should see your design in there. Okay. Yes, thanks for the advertising, Canva. There it is, A3, 5 megs. Let me open it here quickly. There we go. There's my presentation. Okay, the 2 pages that I had there. But I could take that and just download that as a JPEG, for example. Okay, so simple. You can even put in videos and stuff like that if you're going to go full multimedia. You can just drag and drop this thing. You can even use a whole video as a background. Okay, but then it's a bit pointless exporting this thing as a PDF because you're not going to see any of that. You should export the thing as a video file instead. Okay, so a video file will be the same size as your page. But I'm not going to go into that. And then there's background elements here as well. You can search different backgrounds. Here we go. If I just click on one of these backgrounds, it automatically adds it as the background for my composition. Oh, that's hideous. Okay, so that's just a quick crash course in Canva. I'm sure you guys will pick it up. It's very basic. Oh, and if you want to load images that you have saved from the internet, which of course is very important because most of the time you will be using your own images that you created, sketches and stuff like that. So I'm just going to find an image of a raccoon. I think I left a C off there. No, yeah, double C. Oh, hi, buddy. I'm just going to save this image. Let's pretend this is a sketch that you composed yourself. Save it to my desktop. Save. Okay. And then I can go to uploads. Right, and I can go upload media. And then you can upload from any one of these websites, but I'm going to go device, in other words on my computer, so I'm going to click that little icon over there. There we go, it'll open this window now, and then I saved it. Where did I save it? To my desktop. Yeah, there. And I go open. And then what it does is it uploads that image to Canva's cloud. Okay, so this will always be there whenever you come back to Canva and you want to start a new presentation. This image will live there the whole time. When that bar gets to the end, it means it's finished uploading. Now I can take this image and just use it as my own. All right, but if you didn't want to do that, if I go down to this page over here and just delete some of these elements, okay, and I'm just selecting them by clicking on them and then hitting the delete key to get rid of them. Okay. Oh, I deleted that page. Let me go back there. Okay, you can also drag and drop an image. Okay, so I can go to my File Explorer down here. File Explorer, hello. Took a while. Desktop. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. But I can just drag and drop this thing straight from here, straight into Canva. Okay, and you'll see it actually changes in the background there. I can drag it onto this area or into my workspace area. There it is. Okay, popped it in there for me. So that's another easy way to get images in and out or into Canva like that. Okay, and that's pretty much all I need to show you for now. We might go into a couple of extra features next week. But I mean, it's basically text, position, arrangement, order. Okay, adding pages, deleting pages. I can change the order of these pages. Okay, if I want this to be page 1, and I can add a title in here as well if I want. But if I want this to be page 1, I'll just go over there to move up, and then it swaps the order around. Okay. Oh, and let me quickly show you rulers and guides. Okay, just go to File, say Show Rulers, and then you'll get rulers over there, and then you can drag in this area. Okay, you can click and drag on one of the ruler areas, either the horizontal or the vertical one, and you can drop these little guides down for yourself. Okay, if you want to create margins or little guides to lay out stuff with, and then you'll see that as I move my picture around, it will snap to those guides as well. Okay, very useful. And if you want to get rid of a guide, you just got to hover over it till you see this little left-right icon or the up-down one. Okay, and then you can just take the guide and you can drag it way out of the way until it's gone. Just drag it off the page like that. Okay, and then they disappear. And then you can add new ones back in. And then you can also show margins. Okay, so these are just default margins that it sets up for you, assuming that that sometimes as you move the image around, you'll see it snaps into that margin. It's usually invisible, but you can turn them off over there. Yeah, and in a safety folder. I've never tried that before. Okay. And you can make a copy of this whole document as well. And then when you go back to all your designs, you'll see a copy of the document show up here. So you can create copies of documents like that rather than having to go into them and then sort of copy the elements across into a blank document. You can just copy the whole document itself like you would in Windows Explorer by just creating a duplicate of a file. Okay, it's 10 o'clock. So I think that's all we're going to do in terms of Canva and theory today. Let's have like a 10-minute break, and then I'm just going to explain brief one to you. Okay, and then we can all just skedaddle. All right, so I'll see you back at 10 past 10. Thanks. Okay, so oh, sorry, I'll wait for you. Okay, I'll make this quick. This is the last part of the lesson. Next week, we're just going to do a quick Canva tutorial 5. That's the last one for this term in terms of tutorials. Okay, so we'll do that next week. It'll probably take you about 15 minutes. All right, and then that's it. Then we'll be done. Okay, but the last thing to do is to hand out this brief and explain it to you. So this is, you guys have been doing Revit next term. Ooh, and then digital rendering in the third term. Okay, so the brief that, the first brief for this subject, digital presentation 1, okay, is all about visual communication. So it's going to just use the software that you've used to date, so i.e. Photopea and Canva. But if you want to use any other image editing software like Photoshop, you're welcome to do that as well. This is just what I've taught you so far. Well, let's start with the main information there at the top. Okay, it's for 15% of your year mark. All right, for the subject. The rest of them are made up with briefs for the other package that you'll use, and some exams as well, I think. Yeah, Justin can confirm that because he will teach you the rest of the subject. Handout starts today, 16th of March, okay, and the hand-in is 30th of March. So that is about just a week and a little bit from now, about 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks from now. It's a Tuesday, I believe, which is the last day of the term. And the nice thing about this is you're not actually going to do anything particularly, like you're not going to print out anything extra for this. It's just going to piggyback off your PID2. It is indeed off your PID2 brief. And the 30th is a Tuesday. It's the last day of term. So what is the aim? It's to utilize learn digital tools to enhance, compose, and present a design concept. Okay, and these are the tools that we've covered today, but you're welcome to use any others that you feel comfortable using as well. I'm not going to go through the outcomes because that's explained further on. The brief description. Okay, this project will be combined with your PID2 retail brief. Okay, use the software you have learned thus far to create a presentation for your PID design. Your presentations must follow the guidelines of your PID brief with regards to size, quantity of views, labeling, etc. Okay, so I read Justin's brief and he left it quite open-ended. But he did say that you need to include things like, label your drawings, put your logo and your name on there, that kind of stuff. Okay, so those requirements will still be as per your PID2 brief. Okay, but second point there, your floor plan must be digitally rendered. Okay, now when we get to digital rendering in the third term, what we refer to there is, actually 3D modeling the thing and adding textures and lighting and all those kind of effects. So this is not that kind of digital rendering. I want you to think more of hand rendering, the stuff that you've been doing up until now. Okay, markers, pencils, pastel, whatever traditional media you've been doing hand rendering with. We're going to try and replicate that. Not exactly, but we're going to do it digitally. Okay, so very much like tutorial 3 that we did earlier a couple of weeks ago, where I asked you to open that sketch and then we drew in different colors underneath and we got a texture of some flooring, of wood or stone, whatever, and we warped it so that it was at the same perspective as your sketch, and then you modeled up all the layers and you erased bits and pieces and you used all the different brush tools to add some nice color and depth into that image. That's what I'm talking about here. Okay, so your floor plan needs to be rendered in this way. You can be creative about how you do that though. Using colors and images of textures, e.g. flooring, built-in cupboard finishes. You guys are doing this 4x4 retail kind of pop-up concept. So instead of just making something look brown to indicate wood, maybe you actually want to get a texture of real wood from the internet and then, you know, resize that and make it look like actual wood. Okay, I'll leave those kind of creative decisions up to you, but I want you to essentially digitally render the floor plan, okay, using colors and images of textures. Okay, so you can decide where you want to use those, but I suggest that you use a texture for the floor because it's usually part of your floor plan that's visible. It's probably the area that you would fill in the most, perhaps, is the floor area. So I would expect you to use a texture there. But without seeing your designs, I can't tell you exactly. Okay, maybe you have some kind of weird hammock that levitates over the whole thing, in which case, you know, then you would maybe make a different creative decision there about where you place your colors and textures. Okay. There we go, I said similar to tutorial 3. You may use CAD type plans, okay, AutoCAD or something, or SketchUp layout, if you know that, or scanned hand sketches as a foundation, but there must be a visible outline of your plans for clarity's sake, okay? So don't go and add in all your colors and textures and then turn off the outline layer so that I don't see the actual edges of anything like that. Well, the same goes for Justin, okay? We want you to preserve those outlines for the floor plan so that it makes it more clear. Okay, and then in addition to the floor plan, you must choose at least one other view, elevation or perspective. I think Justin gave you the choice of doing, I think you have to do like one floor plan or one elevation and one perspective? Two elevations and a perspective. Okay, so you can choose either maybe you want to do a floor plan and an elevation, or a floor plan and a perspective. Personally, I would choose a perspective because I think that's the thing I would spend more time looking at than an elevation. The perspective is just nicer to look at. Okay, so that would be my recommendation. But if you want to use an elevation instead, that's fine. If you want to do all your pictures in this format, that's fine as well. Okay, but I'm only going to be looking. I'm going to be basically marking you on the minimum of a floor plan plus one other view. Okay, and the other view, you are going to apply the same treatments as above. Okay, you're going to render it just like we did in tutorial 3. Painting in different colors and textures. You can use your selection, masking tools, all that stuff, brush tools, okay, to make it look wow, to make it pop. And if you want to, maybe you want to add in a little bit of Copic sketching or something, if you're working with a hand sketch or you're doing like a traditional 2-point perspective or something like that, and you want to do a little bit of Copic rendering or some marker stuff, by all means you can scan that in and still work over that Copic, that texture that the Copic picks up digitally as well, if you want to. Okay, that's up to you. But yeah, it needs to be a floor plan plus one other view. One or more of the above views must include. Okay, so in addition to using colors and images of textures to digitally render it, I would like to see some attempt at shadow or light source information, either by using the drop shadow layer style. Okay, so if you have a little chair or an ottoman or some kind of object that's sitting on your floor, okay, maybe put it on a different layer, put a little drop shadow around it so that it seems like it's actually three-dimensional, that's coming off the page. And if you don't want to do it that way, you can use your dodge or burn brush and you can just burn a little dark part underneath it, or think about where your light source is coming from, maybe behind it, okay, if your space is enclosed and you have a window or something nearby. Or you can use darker or lighter shades of color. Okay, all techniques that we kind of went through in tutorial 3. You can decide how you want to do it. You can mix and match as well. So in addition to including some kind of attempt at shadow or light, I'd also like to see objects that have their background removed, in other words deep etched, okay, and placed in the scene. For example, merchandise on shelves, or furniture in plan, or silhouettes of people, or branding on surfaces, or something like that, okay? So if you're going to digitally render your perspective, and you have some product on the shelf, like maybe you have a beauty product or something like that, or maybe you chose the wine shop, okay, you can go and find an image of a wine bottle on Google. You can deep etch it, okay, you can use a selection or masking or color selection tools or something to remove the background from the image, and then you can go and place it in your little digital rendering, okay? And you can do it in the floor plan with objects. If you want to put maybe the silhouette of a person into your elevation, that would also count under this point as well. Okay, so I'd like to see some of that, some attempted light and shadow, and some objects that have had their background removed. Okay, you're not required to completely digitize the presentation, as you must still deliver a hard copy presentation. Okay, so you're still going to have to print this thing and stick it on the wall so that Justin can mark it. But you may choose whatever combination of digital and physical presentation you feel best fits your design, as long as you fulfill the other points of these briefs. Okay, so if you want to do this thing completely digitally, so you want to do a couple of sketches or something, or a floor plan in CAD, and maybe 1 or 2 sketches of your perspective, and then some elevation, you can take all of that information and you can put it into a Canva layout or a Photopea layout, and you can add your text and your images and maybe digital samples and descriptions and your label and your logo and your name. You can do all of that stuff digitally, and you can just do one printout and stick it on the wall, if that's what you want to do. Okay, I think that's going to be a little bit flat, to be honest. I like traditional mounting because it adds a little bit of depth to the presentation as well. But if you want to just go ahead and print it, as many of the second and third years do currently, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Okay, so you do of course have to still digitally render the floor plan and at least one other view, etc. Okay, but you don't have to make all the elements of your presentation digital. Okay, you have to do at least the minimum, you know, those ones, but you can choose if you want to still do some traditional things, like maybe you want to take your name and logo and you know, print them separately and cut them out and put them on a little bit of foam board, give them some depth, or maybe you want to hand draw in those elements or something like that. That's totally fine. Okay, as long as you give me the floor plan and the other one as the other view is digitally rendered. So for example, you can print the rendered floor plan and view plus the other view, and then mount it digitally with other elements, or you can compose the entire presentation digitally and print it at final size. Okay, and then in addition to this, I want you to please submit a JPEG file versions of your rendered views on the LMS. Okay, if you create the entire presentation digitally, you may submit a JPEG of your whole layout. Okay, so with your logo and everything, that's fine. Otherwise, just JPEG versions of the digitally rendered areas will suffice. Okay, so if you do traditionally mount it and mix and match it with some other elements, then you don't have to photograph that presentation then send it to me as a JPEG. Just give me JPEGs of the digital stuff you did. Okay, so the floor plan rendering and the other view that you rendered. Give me a flattened JPEG of that and upload it to the LMS. Okay, so that I'm not just looking at the printed version that's hanging on the wall. All right, so the submission requirements will be as per PID 2. But with the floor plan and one other view in a digitally rendered style as discussed above. Okay, and then the second thing is just that JPEG version of the digitally rendered areas uploaded to the LMS. Okay, simple. Any questions? Okay, your mark allocations. This is basically from the module guide over here, but in layman's terms, just read this application here and the mark allocation. Okay, so I'm going to be looking at your overall composition, including text and other elements. That's worth 5 marks. Overall resolution. Okay, so we're going to be working at print resolution here, so I want to see good quality. I want to make sure that I don't see any pixelation or any artifacts or any low quality work coming through in the final presentation. Okay, so make sure you're working at 300 DPI. If you envision that your floor plan is going to be A4 size when you mount it on your final board or something, then make sure you set up an A4 size document at 300 DPI, you know, etc. Quality of digital media, individual elements. So if you go and download objects like furniture that you want to include in your design, or people, something like that, I want to make sure that you download them at a good enough resolution. You don't scale them too much, make them too big, or you know, I want to see that those elements that you end up using in your composition are also of good quality. That's worth 10 marks. Layering and blending of elements. So this is how you're going to, you know, layer those different colors and textures and people and things that you deep etch into your drawing. Okay, so if I see colors that are overlapping one another where they shouldn't be, or if they're going outside the lines, unless that's very obviously the visual style they're going for, if you're going for kind of a loose style, then by all means color outside the lines. But if I can see parts of your images inside the lines and part of it are out, like maybe you went a little bit skew with your brush, or you didn't quite make a selection quite so exact, okay, those are the kind of things I'm going to be looking for. Okay, layering and blending of elements, things should be in the right order, they shouldn't be overlapping or covering one another up. You should use the right blending modes. Okay, multiply, remember that's a key one. So that's worth 20 marks. Effective use of brush tools, neatness of boundaries, so that kind of builds a little bit on what I was talking about there, but also how neatly you color in between the lines and the the separation between those elements. Okay, that's worth 20 marks. The neatness of isolated objects, so how well did you remove the background from people and objects and furniture and items that you put on the shelves? Can I still see some of the object in there? Has it got like a weird little halo around it or a little pixelated fringe or something? Okay, so go in there with your eraser tool and clean that up, make it nice and neat. That's worth 15 marks. And then shadow and realism. Okay, so the depth and realism. So the shadow and the other effects that you add there with the drop shadow, the dodge brush. How are you going to make this thing come alive? How are you going to make it feel 3D and have like real body and depth to it? Okay, and pop off the page by using some of the tools that we've learned so far. So that's worth 15 marks, and then 5 marks for uploading your JPEGs to the LMS. Okay, and then if you go and look at LMS, I've uploaded all the notes that we've covered today up till now, notes for Photopea and the presentations that I've gone through now and previously. And at the end of those presentations, there's 1 or 2 links to further reading if you're interested. You can go ahead and go through that stuff. Okay, but that's it. That's your brief. It's due on the 30th of March. And I will give you some time to work on it in class because the tutorial 5 won't take very long next week, so you can use the rest of the time to continue working on your brief or ask me any questions. We'll cover any areas that you're not comfortable with so far. Are there any questions now at this point? Yes, no? No? Okay, thanks, it's been real. See you next week.